Hey everyone! Today we're going to be reading a book called Westlandia. While we read, I'm going to be calling out some terms from the book that we might not know the definition to, and I'm going to talk us through how to use our context clues and what context clues I use to determine the meaning of the words in our book. So as I call them out, I want you to pay special attention to the context clues that I use to determine the meaning as we're reading. Westlandia by Paul Fleischman. Of course he's miserable, moaned Wesley's mother. He sticks out like a nose, snapped his father. Listening through the heating vent, Wesley knew they were right. He was an outcast from the civilization around him. He alone in his town disliked pizza and soda, alarming his mother and the school nurse. He found professional football stupid. He refused to shave half his head, the hairstyle worn by all the boys, despite his father's bribe of $5. What do you think the word civilization means? We can use context clues to determine what the term civilization means. In our paragraph, I see he was an outcast from the civilization around him. He alone in his town disliked pizza and soda, alarming his mother and the school nurse. So from reading those two sentences again, I can determine that civilization, I can use the context clues to determine that civilization might mean a group of people, like people who live in your town. Passing his neighbors, two styles of housing, garage on the left and garage on the right, Wesley alone dreamed of more exciting forms of shelter. He had no friends, but plenty of tormentors. Fleeing them was the only sport he was good at. What do you think tormentors mean? I can use my context clues of all these children chasing after him that to lead me to think that tormentors might mean people that are not his friends. People that are similar to something like his enemies. Each afternoon his mother asked him what he'd learned in school that day. That seeds are carried great distances by the wind, he answered on Wednesday. That each civilization has its own staple food crop, he answered on Thursday. That's school's over, and I should find a good summer project, he answered on Friday. As always, his father mumbled, I'm sure you'll use that knowledge often. Suddenly, Wesley's thought shot sparks. His eyes blazed. His father was right. He could actually use what he had learned that week for a summer project that would top all others. He would grow his own staple food crop and found his own civilization. How do you think Wesley can form his own civilization if he doesn't have any friends in town? The next morning, he turned over a plot of ground in his yard. That night, a wind blew in from the west. It raced through the trees and set his curtains snapping. Wesley lay awake, listening. His land was being planted. "5 days later, the first seedling appeared. You'll have almighty bedlam on your hands if you don't get those weeds out," warned his neighbor. "Actually, that's my crop," replied Wesley. "In this type of garden, there are no weeds." Following ancient tradition, Wesley's fellow gardeners grew tomatoes, beans, Brussels sprouts, and nothing else. Wesley found it thrilling to open his land to chance and to invite the new and unknown. What do you think bedlam is? I can use my context clues to conclude that bedlam is a type of weed, because it says his neighbor warned him, "You'll have almighty bedlam on your hands if you don't get those weeds out." The plants shot up past his knees, then his waist. They seemed to be all of the same sort. Wesley couldn't find them in any plant book. "Are those tomatoes, beans, or Brussels sprouts?" asked Wesley's neighbor. "None of the above," replied Wesley. Fruit appeared yellow at first, then blushing to magenta. Wesley picked one and sliced through the rind to the juicy purple center. He took a bite and found the taste of an entrancing blend of peach, strawberry, pumpkin pie, and flavors he had no name for. Ignoring the shelf of cereals in the kitchen, Wesley took to breakfasting on the fruit. He dried half a rind to serve as a cup, built his own squeezing device, and drank the fruit juice throughout the day. Pulling up a plant, he found large tubers on the roots. These he boiled, fried, or roasted them on the family barbecue, seasoning them with a pinch of the plant's highly aromatic leaves. It was hot work tending to his crop. To keep the sun off, Wesley wove himself a hat from strips of the plant's woody bark. His success with the hat inspired him to devise a spinning wheel and loom on which he wove a loose-fitting robe from the stalk's inner fibers. Unlike jeans, which he found scratchy and heavy, the robe was comfortable, reflected the sun, and offered a myriad of opportunities for pockets. What do you think the word myriad means? Using my context clues, I think that myriad would mean it offers a lot of possibilities for pockets. His schoolmates were scornful, then curious. Grudgingly, Wesley allowed them 10 minutes apiece at his mortar, crushing the plant seeds to collect the oil. This oil had a tangy scent and served him both as suntan lotion and mosquito repellent. He rubbed it on his face each morning and sold small amounts to his former tormentors at the price of $10 per bottle. Earlier in the story, Wesley's schoolmates were not friends with him. They tormented him. So I wonder why he's selling his suntan lotion and mosquito repellent to his former tormentors. What do you think? "What's happened to your watch?" asked his mother one day. Wesley admitted that he no longer wore it. He told time by the stalk that he used as a sundial and had divided the day into 8 segments, the number of petals on the plant's flower. He adopted a new counting system as well, based likewise upon the number 8. His domain, home to many such innovations, he named Westlandia. Uninterested in traditional sports, Wesley made up his own. These were designed for a single player and used many different parts of the plant. His spectators looked on with envy. Realizing that more players could offer him more scope, Wesley invented other games that would include his schoolmates, games rich with strategy and complex scoring systems. He tried to be patient with the other players' blunders. What do you think spectators means? Using my context clues and the picture on the page, I can determine that spectators might be people watching him play. Alright? And then also, what do you think it means? What do you think the word blunders means? Using the context clues, where he says he tried to be patient with the other players' blunders, and using my clues from the pictures, I can determine that the word blunders might mean mistakes. August was unusually hot. Wesley built himself a platform and took to sleeping in the middle of Westlandia. He passed the evenings playing a flute he'd fashioned from a stalk, or gazing at the sky, renaming the constellations. His parents noted Wesley's improved morale. "It's the first time in years he's looked happy," said his mother. Wesley gave them a tour of Westlandia. "What do you call this plant?" asked his father. Not knowing its name, Wesley had begun calling it "Swist," from the sound of the leaves rustling in the breeze. Like in manner, he'd named his new fabrics, games, and foods until he had created an entire language. Mixing the plant's oil with soot, Wesley made a passable ink. As the finale to his summer project, he used the ink in his own 80-letter alphabet to record the history of his civilization's founding. In September, Wesley returned to school. I wonder what's going to happen when Wesley returns to school in September. I wonder if his former tormentors turned friends will remain his friends, or if they'll go back to tormenting him. He had no shortage of friends.